So, hello everyone. My name is Victoria Haro. I am co-founder and director of the University of the Environment in Mexico, Universidad del Medio Ambiente, and I have the pleasure of chairing this panel today. So I'll present our panelists. We have Laura Nissen from Technical University of Berlin in Germany and Maastricht University in the Netherlands. Okay, let me now see my own notes. And we also have Manish Sihag from Punjab University in India. And we also have Lita Sinacha, which we have in a virtual version. And Manish Sihag, also from Punjab University. So it's Manish and Manisha, both from Punjab University, also husband and wife. And hopefully Ayat Allah from an independent researcher from Morocco, who's also in this panel, but hasn't been able to connect yet. We will have Laura first presenting the Sufficiency in Basis Guide, a practice-relevant tool to drive sufficiency orientation in businesses. So Laura will begin. You have 7 minutes, Laura. I will tell you when you have 1 minute left, and if you can go a little bit, but if you do it too much, I'll just cut you. Okay. Thank you.
That's fair. Thank you so much. And let me know if you can see my slides now.
Not just, yes, great.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. Yes, so I'd like to present the outcome of a research project that we have been working on at the Technical University of Berlin in the last year. And it's very much while we also do the research part and we have research publications, we also very much wanted to have a practice relevant tool. So something that we can actually hand over to businesses and be useful for them. And I will try to give you a little bit of insight into the tool, even though it will be launched in 2 weeks, so it's not yet entirely online. The research project that this comes out of is called the Economics of Sufficiency Research Project. And you can see the right-hand side, it's a German language project. In German, it's called Maßvoll Wirtschaften. And the idea is that we try to understand business strategies for sufficiency, for consumption and production patterns that follow the common good. It was a fairly short research project, so we started last May and we're wrapping up in October. And within that, we've tried to understand the sufficiency strategies that companies of different sizes, different sectors, different organizational types use in Germany, Austria, and German-speaking Switzerland. So very much focusing on that geographical area. And we've also tried to understand, do they have any barriers, so drivers for implementing, and then actually create recommendations for them that they can themselves use in their company. And I know this is a session on sufficiency, but I'm very briefly going to jump back into what is sufficiency, why do we talk about it even? And the idea that we understand is sufficiency is this idea of enough but not too much. We are hopefully many of us familiar with the idea of the donut economics, that we want to have an economy that stays within the planetary boundary, so not exceeding, for instance, climate change, air pollution, or biodiversity loss, but at the same time also providing a social foundation, making sure that people can have, in a sense, a good life for all, rather than using excessive resources, which is currently the situation. And this balance would, at the moment, mean that we have to reduce our resource and energy consumption, particularly in high-consuming countries, and then also redistribute resources more fairly to ensure that this social foundation is met globally. And in that, it is also a bit of a criticism of the endless, or of the model of endless growth, because especially if we talk about staying within the planetary boundaries, that might be something that might not be combinable or cannot be done. The endless growth cannot be done within the planetary boundaries. So then what does that mean for businesses? How can companies actually help to stay within the planetary boundaries and at the same time have a good life for all? The idea is that sufficiency-oriented businesses encourage their consumers to make do with less. That might sound a little bit grim, but the idea is not that they have to have any sacrifice. Instead, the idea is that they actually focus on a different type of value creation. Rather than focusing on consuming more and more resources, they focus maybe on consuming higher quality items or also linking into less material activities. So for companies, that means that they have to rethink how they create value. And oftentimes that means that they try to follow the principles of being less, so selling less, selling only what people really need, but then maybe higher quality, being slower, producing items that last for a long time instead of fast fashion, for instance, looking at slow fashion, focusing on more regional production so that a lot of the transportation is cut out, and then also potentially looking beyond commerce. So trying to see if we do not have to provide it as a business, can maybe the consumers repair themselves? Can maybe the consumers create themselves? And can we support them in that? So we have identified, I think, around 18 strategies that you can find on the right-hand side. And it's a bit too much to go into detail now, but just so you know, we've differentiated between an internal and an external scope. So we found that the companies that we actually worked with, that we interviewed, oftentimes change sufficiency both within their company. So, for instance, limiting their own resource consumption, working in only a specific geographical area, training their staff on sufficiency, but also maybe saying we do not take a specific amount of growth. We only grow if we can actually do it. So not aiming for growth. So these are internal strategies that we've come across. And we've also come across external strategies where they try to promote sufficiency with their customers or with their suppliers or even in politics, where they, for instance, do advocacy in order to promote sufficiency in their local government, or where they help consumers through repair offers to use things for a longer time rather than having to buy new. So this is the type of sufficiency in business that we've been looking at in our research project. And why this is really interesting for research, the idea, of course, is to actually get this into businesses. So what we wanted to do is create a playbook. And it's turned out to be a website, or we've decided for it to be a website rather than a print edition. And in it, we are combining the results from literature reviews, interviews with pioneers, so companies that are already promoting sufficiency, and then a large scale survey that we conducted in the three countries I spoke of among companies that are not yet sufficiency oriented, but might be, because we wanted to understand if maybe they like the idea of sufficiency but aren't yet using it. So we've tried to create easily accessible information, give some business cases, give benefits, create some tools. And what it has turned out into is this following topics you can see on the right. So giving information on what is sufficiency, what can businesses do, what are the advantages that companies say they find in sufficiency, what does that mean in terms of growth? Does it mean we don't have to grow? Not necessarily. Then how can we scale it? And then we've included two tools. So one is a Mythbuster game to understand if people know it very well. And the other one is a checklist for businesses so that they can print it out and take the next steps themselves. Unfortunately, the website is only going to be launched in 2 weeks. Oops, sorry. But this is a very, very sneak peek. So this is obviously in German. It will also be available in English, but we were still finishing the German part when I had to submit the slides. So the topic or the headline here says, this is how you do sufficiency economics, or this is how you are a sufficiency business. And on the bottom right, you can see the numbers from the survey that we did. So for instance, 95% of companies said promoting sufficiency gains a clear reputation or shows a clear reputational gain. If there are any German speakers interested, the launch is on the 18th of September, and you can still register for the digital workshop. But of course, this is a very international crowd, so I'm not sure how many people can actually join in a German context. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. Laura has to leave, so we will have a Q&A at the end of the session. But since Laura has to leave, I wanted to open a specific Q&A for her. We just have 5 minutes. So if there's anybody from the audience that would like to ask a question, please do write it on the Q&A box right now. And while you think of a question for Laura, I have one. And I would like Laura to ask you, What is for you the added value of using sufficiency instead of sustainability? What's the difference here, conceptually?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think something we also need to think about. So, I come from circularity research, and one thing I noticed in circularity, which is another form of sustainability, right, is that a lot of the times, companies especially are going for the easy solutions. They are going for recycling, they are going for the low-hanging fruits, or promoting efficiency. That is all sustainability. But these solutions do not yet question how much we actually use in terms of resources. So while we really need all of these other sustainability solutions, sufficiency is a different sustainability solution that is maybe a little bit more radical and goes a step further by questioning how much do we consume, not just how do we consume. And how do we recycle things or how do we make things more efficient?
Okay. Um, we have a question from Benedict Verkic. Are the results applicable to all types of companies, or are they more suitable for certain types than others?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have worked with sufficiency-oriented companies in the last few years, and we found that there are very different sectors doing it. So we found, for instance, a lot of examples from fashion where companies pivot towards slow fashion, producing seasonless garments that can be repaired and worn for a long time. But we've also found examples, for instance, from architecture, where businesses say instead of building new houses, we as an architectural office would like to help you use the existing office and rebuild it in a way that it suits you better. So we've really found many different sectors. And there are more so far examples from SMEs, from small and medium-sized enterprises, potentially also related to the financing structure and pressure from shareholders in terms of maybe growth and um, yeah, expanding faster than a sufficiency strategy would allow. But we do also see some large scale examples. So Patagonia is a fairly well-known example for sufficiency. They're an American outdoor brand, and they do openly communicate that customers should only buy if they really need it, and that otherwise they should repair it or try to, for instance, buy a second-hand item.
Mhm. Great, thank you, Laura. And one last question, that's for me. Um, if you really have a sustainable production, meaning that you are regenerating 100% of all the resources in quantity and quality that you are using, why would that be a problem regarding sufficiency? I mean, if you're sustainable, why would you also want to diminish consumption if whatever you're producing is already harmless?
No, exactly. So we all need to consume, right? So to a certain extent, it's also the question, don't we need this anyway? But we know just physically we will never be able to recircle things 100%. The laws of thermodynamics do not allow for it. Every time we need to recycle, every time we need to repair, every time we need to reuse, we have to put in new energy and new raw material because the material degrades over time. So as it is standing now, there always will need to be some care about how much do we produce. It doesn't mean that we can produce. We just need to make sure that we really think, what do we need? Focus on that. Don't focus on the fast fashion, focus on the medical appliances that are really needed. So this kind of rethinking what is really necessary in our economy.
Great. Thank you, Lara. Thank you for sharing, uh, and good luck with your launch of the webpage.
Thank you very much.
Have a good afternoon. Now we'll pass to Nita Senacha from San Jose, United States. Nita was not able to be here, so she's prepared a video that we will see. And her article is called Shifts in Consumer Behavior Amid Digitalization, Exploring Green Labels, Sustainable Packaging, Invisible Marketing, and Communication Trends.
Hello, everyone. This is Nita Sancha. It's an honor to be presenting for World Resource Forum 25. The paper is titled A Shift in Consumer Behavior Amid Digitalization, Exploring Green Labels, Sustainable Packaging, Invisible Marketing, and Communication Trends. 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . . . 。 . . . 。 . . 。 . . 。 . . 。 . . 。 . . 。 . 。 . 。 . . 。 . 。 . . .
。 . . .
。 . This paper examines the transformation of consumer decision making in response to rapid digital advancements and sustainability concerns. Since sustainability is a vast topic, this paper narrows its scope by focusing on specific aspects in order to minimize deviation and ensure depth of analysis. These aspects are digital transformation, technology and digitalization has become part of our everyday life, and so is digital transformation, reshaping business operations and consumer behavior. The relationship between consumerism and environmental impact brings into focus the broader socio-political and environmental concerns. Individualized perspectives, such as values and lifestyle choices, increasingly shape sustainable consumption, and increased awareness and education play a vital role in shaping eco conscious values amongst customers. And disruptive events, be it COVID-19 pandemic, natural disaster, or climate change. We know that for over past 2 decades, e-commerce has expanded globally with accelerated growth during COVID-19 pandemic. Research show that smartphones and internet use shifted perception of digital shopping, and these perceptions have also shaped the modern expectations of consumers, and they have changed their demands and trust in brands as well. The study employed a cross-sectional survey designed to explore the influence of digital communication, minimal packaging design, and eco-packaging on consumer behavior. The questionnaires were distributed using Google Forms, and responses were collected online. The objective was to test a set of hypotheses covering four thematic sections, namely digital marketing, um, exploring invisible marketing and online trends, the impact of minimalist design. Here, we looked at the role of design and branding in consumer trust, eco packaging, where the structural packaging, the sustainability regulations, and clear indication of eco labeling were studied. And last but not least, the personal behavior. We looked at the consumer psychology and attitudes using the theory of planned behavior. Speaking of key findings, beginning with digital marketing, we find that people rely more on digital platforms for shopping, and short and visually compelling videos have failed to influence or promote eco-conscious behavior amongst the consumers of online platforms. When we talk about minimalist design, here we mainly focus on the impact of visual design, and minimalist design elements such as clean layout, fewer colors, simple fonts make a product appear more premium than eco-friendly. However, eco packaging has a positive impact on the consumers. Here we see that green packaging design elements, such as use of earthy colors, minimal design, nature symbol, make a product appear and feel more eco-friendly, natural, and safe. We also see that positive emotions towards sustainable packaging predict willingness to switch to a lesser known brands by the consumers. And looking at the personal attitudes, these findings align with the theory of planned behavior, which suggests that attitudes, perceived behavioral control, and subjective norms work together to shape people's intention and action. In this study, all hypotheses in this sections were supported. We see a strong positive relationship where respondents who enjoy buying sustainably packaged goods reported larger or increased eco-conscious behavior over the past 2 years. The higher likelihood of switching to brands with more sustainable packaging and supportive social environment are associated with positive emotions about purchasing sustainable packaging. In conclusion, consumer behavior today is heavily shaped by digitalization, sustainability cues, and social influence. We see that sustainable packaging has gained importance with the growing demand for environmentally friendly products. The use of biodegradable and recyclable materials not only reduce waste but also resonate with eco-conscious consumers. Thank you for your attention.
So our next panelist is Ayat Ala Bougamadne, independent researcher from Morocco. And the text, hi Ayat, how are you?
Hello.
The text she will be presenting is Optimal Pathways for Waste Recovery and Recycling Strategies in Circular Economy Transitions, the case of École Polytechnique Restaurants. Thank you, Ayat. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much. I have just to share my screen. Okay. So hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Ayat Labramdan, and my research focuses on climate change and resource management. And I'm happy today to contribute to this important session on sufficiency and sustainable consumption at the World Resources Forum 2025, where I will present my work on optimal pathways for waste recovery and recycling strategies in circular economy transition by taking the case of university restaurants as and as an example, École Polytechnique in Paris, in France. So as we know, the issue of food waste represents a major global challenge. It is not only a matter of lost food, but also significant environmental impact. It has significant environmental impact, economic and social concern, which impacts the planet, finances, and global food security. So the global estimates shows that each year around 2.5 billion tons of food are wasted worldwide, which represents about 40% of all food production. So if this food were not lost and were distributed equitably, it could potentially be enough to feed nearly 3 billion people, which is almost half of the current global population. Just in Switzerland, 260 kilograms of food are wasted every second, which represents a total of 2.8 million tons per year, or about 7% of overall food production. Even though policies, programs, and initiatives have been implemented to reduce food waste, the problem remains highly significant on a global scale. The volume of food lost is extremely high, 2.5 billion tons of food food are wasted worldwide. So the volume is extremely high. So it has major consequences, environmental, economic, and social. Environmental because when food is produced but not consumed, all the resources used for its production, like water, energy, fertilizers, pesticides, farmland, are wasted, and the corresponding greenhouse gas emissions are released into the atmosphere. For example, 1 kilogram of meat generates much higher emission and consumes far more water and energy than 1 kilogram of vegetables. So its waste is particularly harmful to the environment. Much higher emission because meat production like beef, lamb, involve raising animals that produce methane during digestion. So it's produce higher emission. It's consume more water because producing 1 kilogram of meat often requires thousands of liters of water to hydrate the animals, irrigate their feed crops, etc. Energy is also needed for heating, building, transportation, and meat processing. Farmland, labor, and other resources are also required. It has the fact that the food is lost. It has also an economic consequence. So it represents financial loss for all actors in the food chain. It can be farmers, for instance, lost or unsellable harvest, distributors or retailers, unsold products stored unnecessarily, and also consumers, for instance, money spent on food that is not eaten. It has also social impact because while tons of food are being thrown away, hundreds of millions of people suffer from hunger and malnutrition. So this contrast highlights food injustice. The food exists, but is not distributed equitably. So reducing food waste could help alleviate food insecurity worldwide. So why the example of university restaurants is of crucial importance here? Because this institution generates significant volumes of bio-waste every day, from the meal served to students and staff. So unlike other institutions like hospitals, industries, or public canteens, it is easier to implement pilot measures and quickly evaluate their impact. For instance, by optimizing portion management, valorizing leftovers through composting or anaerobic digestion, or implementing surplus redistribution initiative, it is possible to significantly reduce food waste while also generating added value in the form of natural fertilizer for the campus gardens or energy. So this is why the case of university restaurants is important in this context, and taken as an example of École Polytechnique, where I'm an alumna. So this can be served as model of circular economy applied to collective catering, which can raise awareness among students and staff and about more sustainable and responsible food practices. So just to illustrate the difference between linear recycling and circular economy. So the linear economy, you for instance, you buy plastic bottle, you use it, and then you throw in it in the trash without recycling. So the principle of take, make, and dispose. Recycling economy is discarded plastic bottle is recycled to make new bottle or textile fibers, but the process consumes much energy and water and does not completely eliminate waste. So the principle of take, make, recycle, and then dispose. Circular economy, the goal is to keep the resource in the economic cycle as long as possible. So you minimize the waste and you maximize the product value. So it's reduce, you order only the necessary quantity of ingredients to avoid surpluses, you reuse it, and then you recycle, and then you recover. So I will not go through the details, but if you have question, I will answer it at the end of the presentation. So just to highlight the difference between the three types, linear recycling and circular economy. So to effectively evaluate circular economy strategies aimed at reducing food waste in university restaurants, we have first to we need to identify the types of waste generated. So for this study, we consider first food waste, so the bio-waste. It can be meal leftovers like unfinished plates or unserved dishes, preparation residues like fruit and vegetable peels, eggshells, fish bones, coffee grounds, tea bags, also expired or unsold products like stale bread, dairy products, and so on. It can be also oil and fat waste like used frying oils, cooking fats. It can be also packaging waste like plastic films, trays, bottles, disposable cutlery, delivery packaging, milk or juice, cartons. Can be also cans, preserves, sauce or jam jars, etc. Also non-food waste related to operation like washing water, napkins, menus, invoices, worn out equipment, damaged tablecloths, uniforms, and so on. So now we have defined the types of waste which can be in university restaurants. Now we have to define the strategies. The strategies considered in this study is first one is portion optimization, which involve adjusting the quantity served to the actual needs of students, for example, by offering half portion or flexible menus, which helps limit leftovers while catering to different appetites. The second strategy is still edible food surpluses can be valorized through redistribution, whether via partnerships with charitable organizations, food banks, or the provision of shared refrigerators, which ensure socially useful use of excess food while fostering solidarity. So the third strategy,
the time is up, so we need you to close. You have half a minute left. Okay.
So, okay, I will go directly to the results.
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, so the idea is we have to define the types of waste, to define the types of strategies and the types of criteria needed to evaluate these strategies. And then we get the ranking of these criteria. And so this is the P chart. And then we get the ranking of the strategy, so with the bar plots. So which criteria has the most impact is the environmental impact and economic dimension, as we can see here in the P chart. So we have 20% for the economic impacts, and so the environmental impacts has higher weights than economic impacts, then followed by the social impact, then technical and logistical feasibility, and then user acceptability and participation. And at the last level is the sustainability and durability solution, which is difficult to maintain over time due to lack of infrastructure, unstable flows, and so on. We'll see its overall score slightly constrained. For the strategies, we have portion optimization and redistribution of surpluses dominates because they combine strong environmental and also economic performance with, of course, good feasibility and acceptability. Then we have methanization, which means anaerobic digestion, followed by composting, which remain strong in terms of environmental impact and sustainability. So this study provides clear framework to prioritize different waste reduction strategies for the case of university restaurants based on multiple criteria: environmental, economic, social, feasibility, acceptability, and sustainability. So this methodology can be adapted to other universities or communities to evaluate similar strategies, but in different cultural or logistical contexts. But it has also some limitation because it relies on predefined criteria and strategy. So it does not always account for all complex interaction between strategies, local policies, or user behaviors. So priorities may change over time with evolving costs, behaviors, or available technology like new composting or anaerobic digestion technique. So I hope that I was clear while presenting, but if you have any question, I can answer it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ayat. We would have time for maybe one question if there's any question from the public. Okay. So we have one from Benelis. In terms of the food waste, how is this best carried out? From the top down through regulation or another mechanism?
Sorry, I didn't hear your question.
In terms of the food waste, how is this best carried out? From the top down through regulation or some other mechanism?
Well, as I explained it here, you have different criteria. The criteria that I have considered for these studies is economic dimension, environmental impact, social impact. So I will, yes, the environmental impact, which means the ability to reduce waste sent to landfills, the ability to decrease greenhouse gas emission. Then the economic impacts, for instance, the implementation costs, saving generated and potential revenues from valorization. Also social impacts, the benefits for the community, and also technical and logistical feasibility. For instance, the capacity to integrate into the daily operation of the university restaurants, the ability to maintain it long terms, the potential for scaling up to other campuses or institutions. But of course, I didn't consider the local policies. Okay. So yes, I try to be like to have concrete results with the reality, but of course I need more detailed data, more data on user behavior, on local policies, the quantities of plates served to students and staff. So this is what I highlighted in the conclusion. The social impact or user acceptability may be subjective and difficult to quantify precisely. So this is why I considered the general criteria, environmental, social, acceptability, and so on. And also, I considered the most relevant strategies, optimization of portion optimization, redistribution of surplus to charities, composting, for instance, to generate natural fertilizer, and anaerobic digestion to generate biogas for energy production, and also digestate for it's like agricultural soil amendments. So yes.
Okay. Well, we still have two presenters, so we'll come back to Ayat if there's more time. There's an additional question. But I'd like to thank you, Ayat, for your presentation. And now
Thank
we
you.
will to Manisha Sihag, and she will be presenting Can Resource Sufficiency be Achieved in Urban Water Management? Insights from Chandigarh's 24/7 Water Supply Project. Welcome, Manisha.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'm Manisha Sihag from Punjab University, Chandigarh, India, and I am presenting this research. I'm presenting this research paper titled as "The Reform Readiness Gap in Urban India: Evaluating Chandigarh's 24/7 Water Supply Project." So I just want to clarify here that there is a slight change in my title, because when I was conducting this research, so the project was ongoing, but now I have to change my title because the project has been withdrawn. So according to that, I have modified my title. So earlier it was something, now it's the Reform Readiness Gap in Urban India, Evaluating Chandigarh's 27 Water Supply Project. So this study emerges from a field-based policy evaluation of a smart city reform initiative in Chandigarh, the first planned city of India. It is co-authored with Manish Sihag from Department of Public Administration, Punjab University. So if we see the background and motivation for this research is, next slide, please. Yeah, so the 24/7 urban water supply model is increasingly being promoted as a solution to urban water stress, aiming for equity, efficiency, and sustainability. So in Chandigarh, the pilot project was launched in 2024 with international funding from EU and AFD. So under the Smart Cities mission, so Mani Majra zone was selected as the pilot study area. It is a suburban area to Chandigarh city, and it is home to nearly 50,000 residents. So it provides a mixed demographic profile for testing infrastructural feasibility and behavioral responses. However, during implementation in the Mani Majra zone, the project encountered service delivery problems, technical failures, and also the rising public opposition. So, this study investigates how the lack of socio-technical and institutional readiness contributed to the breakdown of this reform. So, in the next slide, this paper seeks to answer three main questions, which are: how did residents experience the pilot project? Next is, what institutional, infrastructural, and behavioral challenges shaped its outcomes? And the third is, what can this case teach us about reform design in Indian cities? So the theoretical framework draws on mainly three perspectives. First is social practice theory to understand the behavior, and if it offers a valuable lens through which to understand how household behaviors around water usage are embedded in long-standing routines, social norms, and infrastructural arrangements. And the second framework is urban political ecology to capture power and governance dynamics. So, because while SPT, social practice theory, focuses on the micro level dynamics of everyday practice, urban political ecology shifts the analytical gaze towards the political and institutional structures that shapes infrastructure governance. So next is stakeholder-centered governance perspective to evaluate institutional management. So this approach emphasizes inclusive decision-making, multi-level institutional coordination, and adaptive feedback mechanism as a foundation to effective service delivery. So these all are integrated under a conceptual model, which we called reform readiness gap. So this gap refers to the disconnect between a reform's technical ambition and the socio-institutional capacity required for its successful implementation. So the 24/7 model, while designed to promote efficiency, equity, and sustainability, failed because it underestimated the infrastructural deficiencies, institutional weakness, and behavioral inertia prevalent at the local level. So this conceptual model helps us to structure the subsequent analysis by directly comparing the stated goals of the 24/7 project as outlined in the detailed project report and the live outcomes reported by the residents in the pilot zone. So next is the methodology. So we adopted mixed method design using both qualitative and quantitative procedures. So primary data was collected from 400 households through an author administrator interview schedule in the Mani Majra zone using stratified sampling across housing types like informal, EWS, low income groups, independent plots, and apartments. The survey focused on service continuity, water quality, trust, metering, billing, and willingness to pay. So the secondary evidence includes municipal documents, media reports on the rollback decision, and a corpus of peer-reviewed research on the urban water governance and behavior. So bivariate analysis using chi-square test was used to identify statistically significant links between people's experience regarding water quality, supply continuity, and meter functioning and their stance on the project, suggesting that experience level may influence attitudes towards the issue. So the key findings are pretty telling. So first, we see 84% of the households said they never or rarely received a continuous supply. Although the reform was meant to provide round-the-clock water, that means most residents saw no real change in their day-to-day access despite the project's claim. Second finding is 75% rated water quality as poor or very poor. Next finding is 72% opposed tariff hikes, as affordability was the most cited reason for rejecting the 24/7 model. When asked about supporting tariff hikes to sustain in uninterrupted supply, 72% of households said no. 20% said yes, but only if quality improved. And only 8% offered unconditional support. And also 89% rejected the city-wide scale-up of the project. So next finding was when asked about their trust in the Municipal Corporation of Chandigarh to provide equitable and reliable water services, 75% of the responses indicated low or very low trust, with only 4% selecting high or very high. So the next is statistically dissatisfaction with supply and quality was significantly associated with opposition to reform. So the next slide, in the next slide, we throw a light on the discussion and interpretation. So the problem wasn't just infrastructure, but a lack of socio-institutional preparedness. Behaviorally, residents continued storing water and distrusting bills, habits shaped by years of intermittent service. Politically, there was limited consultation and poor grievance redressal. Smart meters and pressure zones were also introduced without building citizen confidence. So essentially, the reform was imposed, not co-produced, leading to public backlash and eventual rollback of the this program. So next slide is about policy implications. So this case offers important lessons. So first of all, the reform ambition must match local capacity in terms of staffing, infrastructure, and coordination. So without matching ambition with absorptive capacity, reform becomes not just ineffective, but counterproductive. Second is citizen engagement is not optional, it is precondition, because participatory design not only improves legitimacy but also produces valuable local knowledge on pipe networks, usage behavior, and coping strategies that technical consultants often overlook. And also women who bear the brunt of poor water access and service unpredictability must be included as active stakeholders in design and monitoring. Gender disaggregated surveys must be incorporated. Third is tariff charges must be linked to actual service improvements and framed transparently. As cities must link tariff reform explicitly to verify service improvements, the projected hike in water tariffs was one of the most destabilizing aspects of the 24/7 pilot project. because residents were asked to pay more without experience, improved services, a dynamic that fueled public opposition. So fourth reason is one of the reason is Chandigarh's project failure was its rigidity. So in that case, reform must allow for phased adaptive implementation rather than rigid rollout, and therefore embed adaptive governance mechanism, including the ability to pause rollouts, suspend tariff increase, and respond to grievance data in real time. Finally, donor funding should align with local accountability, not just delivery metrics. Uh, at the last, if we see at the look at the conclusion, Chandigarh's 24/7 pilot study demonstrates that well-intentioned reforms can falter when they lack trust, transparency, and institutional readiness. We argue that reform readiness gap is a critical lens for evaluating urban water projects in Chandigarh and across India, and also other emerging cities. Water reform is not only about infrastructure but also governance, participation, and shared ownership. And that's all from my side. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Manisha. Please post any questions you would like to ask Manisha. And while you think of them, I'll post this one, Manisha. You found in your research that the 24/7 water, continuous water offer reduces storage-related wastage. So this is one of your conclusions I read. So you said that having people be able to have access 24/7 to water has one important environmental impact, which is that the waste of water related to storage, to the storage of water, is reduced. This is one of your conclusions. So I wanted to ask why? What is this waste of water because it's been stored instead of it being continuously offered?
Actually, this is regarding the behavior. As I have already talked about the behaviors of the people in my study. So what they do is they used to store water. Despite of the continuous supply, 24/7 supply, they are still used to store the water because they have a slight, we can say, the mistrust in government or these regarding these policies. They think that the water will not be continued, or it will it will we can say that it will it will be stopped by due to some reason. So that is why they are we can say that they are used to store the waters. The storage of water is still going on despite the this 24/7 water supply. So that comes from the behavioral approaches of the people, of the masses.
Thank you, Ayat. Thank you, Manish. Thank you,
Thank
Manisha.
you.
Also, Laura,
Thank-
that's had to leave earlier. I think your research has been very interesting in the sense that you've studied specific cases, trying to assess if some programs are working or not. And this is the type of work we need for sufficiency and sustainable consumption to be something real and not just a concept. So I appreciate and I'm thankful for your effort in trying to assess the two programs you both assessed, Manisha and Manisha, and also Ayat in terms of following the program in the restaurant in the Polytechnic. So thank you very much. I hope the audience learned something today. And if you would like to see the papers, you can go into the forum's webpage, and then you can download the abstracts and also contact the authors. Thank you very much. Have a great day.